For the first time in many years, Nigerian Christians are smiling through tears, not because the pain is gone, but because someone finally listened. Across churches, homes, and communities that have lived under fear for decades, there is a deep sense of relief. A promise was made, and that promise was fulfilled. The terrorists who have killed, displaced, and terrorized Christian communities for years were finally hit hard. And the reaction tells us everything we need to know. Christians are relieved. Terrorist sympathizers are angry. For years, Christians in Nigeria have been left alone with their killers. From Benue to Jos, from southern Kaduna to Enugu, Ebonyi, Zamfara, Sokoto, and Borno, the story has been the same. Armed men storm villages at night, churches are attacked, farmers are murdered on their land, families are wiped out, survivors run into IDP camps with nothing but trauma. And after every attack, the response is silence, excuses or blame placed on the victims. Nigerian Christians have cried until their voices went hoarse. They protested peacefully, they wrote petitions, they begged governors, they appealed to the presidency, they spoke to the world. Many were ignored, some were mocked, some were arrested, some were killed. Meanwhile, the killers grew bolder. What made it worse was not just the violence, but the double standard. When terrorists attacked, officials spoke of complex security challenges. When villagers tried to defend themselves, they were disarmed, arrested, or jailed. When terrorists kidnapped hundreds, negotiations followed. When victims resisted, punishment followed. The case of Sunday Jackson still burns in the hearts of many Nigerians. A man who defended himself against an attacker was sentenced to death. Terrorists who slaughter entire communities are called repentant and reintegrated. That contrast alone tells a painful story. In Nigeria, self-defense is criminalized, but terrorism is managed, explained, and sometimes rewarded. For decades, the military was either restrained, underfunded, compromised, or politically restrained from finishing the job. Every time there was serious momentum against Boko Haram or Fulani extremist militias, voices rose up calling for dialogue, warning of backlash, and demanding the military slow down. And many of those voices were loud, organized, and influential. That is why this moment feels different. This time, the strike came without negotiation. It came with clarity. It came with a message. The killing of innocent people, especially targeted religious killings, will not continue without consequences. And immediately, the reactions exposed the fault lines. Christian communities responded with prayers, gratitude, and cautious hope. Pastors spoke of relief. Families who have buried loved ones said, "At least someone heard us." Not because they love war, but because they have lived with death for too long. At the same time, certain clerics, influencers, and political voices reacted with anger and outrage. They warned about sovereignty. They warned about escalation. They demanded foreign involvement. These are the same people who rarely speak with urgency when churches are attacked or when entire villages are wiped out. Their concern appears strongest when terrorists are targeted, not when civilians are buried. This is not about religion as a whole. Many Muslims in Nigeria are also victims of terrorism and want peace, but it is about specific extremists and sympathizers who consistently speak against military action while offering sympathy, justification, or silence toward terrorists. Nigerians are not imagining this pattern. They have watched it for years. When terrorists kill, excuses appear. When terrorists are hit, outrage erupts. That contradiction is what angers victims and comforts killers. Christians in Nigeria have survived what many outside the country cannot imagine. Children going to church not knowing if they will return. Farmers planting crops knowing armed men may arrive before harvest. Mothers sleeping lightly because night raids are common. Communities learning to flee at the sound of gunshots, all while being told to remain calm and trust a system that repeatedly fails them. Even worse, communities that tried to organize local defense were disarmed by the state. Weapons were seized, vigilantes were arrested, villagers were told to rely on security forces that often arrived too late or not at all. In some cases, those who defended themselves were prosecuted faster than those who attacked them. That is why this moment feels like oxygen to drowning people, not because violence is celebrated, but because impunity was finally challenged. For years, Nigerians were told that nothing could be done, that forests were too dense, that terrorists were too embedded, that the problem was too complex. Yet when decisive action came, targets were found, camps were hit, the myth of invincibility collapsed. This has forced a national conversation Nigeria avoided for too long. Who really benefits from endless insecurity? Who speaks when terrorists are threatened but stays silent when victims are slaughtered? Why are some voices more concerned about the lives of armed extremists than defenseless civilians? Christians are not asking for special treatment. They are asking for the most basic duty of any state, protection of life. They are asking not to be abandoned. They are asking not to be punished for surviving. The relief being felt now is mixed with grief. It does not erase the graves in Benue. It does not rebuild burnt churches in Kaduna. It does not bring back children kidnapped in Zamfara or worshippers killed in Jos. But it does something important. It restores a sense that the world is not completely deaf, and that matters.
This moment should shame Nigeria's political and security leadership, because it took external action to do what should have been done years ago. It should force deep reflection about why terror was allowed to grow, why sympathizers were tolerated, and why victims were treated as inconveniences. Christians are praying for peace, not endless war, but peace without justice is surrender. Peace without accountability is oppression, and peace without protection is just another word for abandonment. This is why the relief is real. This is why the prayers are loud. This is why the reactions are exposing truths many tried to hide. Nigeria now stands at a crossroads. It can finally confront extremism honestly, dismantle the networks that protect it, and defend all citizens equally. Or it can return to denial, excuses, and selective outrage. History will remember which path was chosen. This is Trend Fusion. We speak the truth without fear, without hate, and without compromise. If you believe Nigerians deserve honesty, justice, and protection, follow, like, share, and stay with us. Silence has already cost too many lives.